Good morning. The Medicaid Estate Recovery Program is a congressionally mandated system designed to recoup the costs of long-term care. In reality, however, estate recoveries account for a very small percentage of Medicaid long-term care expenses, yet have a significantly negative impact on the poorest segment of the older adult population. Those who cannot afford to buy long-term care insurance, those who cannot afford the legal advice necessary to engage in the forms of estate planning that can protect certain assets while retaining Medicaid eligibility, and most often, those who don't even understand they needed to have a plan to finance their long-term care needs. Most individuals that we work with at our aging units and our aging disabilities resource centers across Wisconsin are very surprised to find out that Medicare pays for very little of their long-term care expenses. The burden of estate recoveries fall disproportionately on low-income families and communities of color, preventing families from building wealth through home ownership. Additionally, the burden falls inequitably on some families due to medical unpredictability. Families don't have a crystal ball, letting them know which families in the future might be living with Alzheimer's disease or multiple chronic conditions and will require months and years of long-term care service. The federal law requires states to collect from assets that go through the probate estate, but some states, as you heard from Senator Larson, like Wisconsin, beginning in August of 2014, have elected to expand the definition of estate recovery and pursue other non-probate assets as well. I've worked in the aging network for over 30 years, and I can honestly say, while most people understand very little about how long-term care is funded, many older adults and caregivers worry about the state taking any of their few remaining assets. The Medicaid Estate Recovery Program discourages people from ever even applying for the long-term care services and supports they need. Anyone who has worked in aging for any amount of time has heard this question many times. If I go on Medicaid, will the state take my home? As they learn about estate recovery and the state's ability to place liens on their homes, often the only thing of any significant value they own, and now also seek repayment for Medicaid long-term care services from life estates, joint bank accounts, and life insurance policies, to name a few, some will respond to offers of Medicaid-funded services with a no thank you. It may seem that this disincentive to keep people off Medicaid will save the state and federal government money, but that often is not the case. Instead, decreased utilization of services when they are first needed can result in people delaying need for care and ending up with much higher care needs and costs down the road, often after an emergency such as a fall or illness requiring hospitalization. Additionally, the lack of needed long-term care services placed an increased burden on family members to meet all the care needs of their loved ones, while often raising their families and juggling paid employment. For those with family members who can assist with care, this can create an unsustainable situation. For those without family members or friends to help with care, it is a recipe for disaster. The workforce crisis impacting the long-term care system in this state and all who rely on it for care and support is creating additional challenges and inequities. As agencies close due to low rates of funding and an inability to recruit and retain workers, people in need of care face increasing challenges in having their care needs met. Approved service hours go unfilled as there are no workers to fill them. Shifts go uncovered when workers are out sick, and families are trying to fill the gaps by providing additional care and stretching themselves even thinner. In the end, some long-term care recipients, especially those in rural areas of the state where providers are even more limited, are finding they are unable to remain at home due to the lack of services and supports. These individuals must then seek care in residential care settings, which is not their first choice, will likely cost much more, are undoubtedly also dealing with worker shortages, and in the end, will further exacerbate the amount of Medicaid funds spent on their long-term care, and ultimately the amount the state will attempt to recover from whatever is left of their estate. Medicaid is funded by federal and state tax dollars. Medicare beneficiaries and their families, just like other Wisconsinites, have contributed to the program through their tax payments. Low-income older adults who need long-term care services and supports and their families should not have to shoulder the burden of tens or more likely hundreds of thousands of dollars in Medicaid estate claims. We must all pay our share to care for those in need. We believe Congress should repeal the entire Medicaid estate recovery program. But until that happens, we ask Wisconsin to preserve the few remaining assets of low-income older adults served by the Medicaid long-term care system for the family members they leave behind by collecting from their estates only what is required by federal law.